Shalom, brothers and sisters, and welcome all. So, just finished a live stream, but there's a quick topic I want to address, and that is who killed Goliath? And you may be asking yourself, who killed Goliath? Is that even a question? David killed Goliath, or David or David killed Goliath. Maybe what you're thinking. And we have a photograph here, so that's proof. So the question is settled. No, that's just humor. Obviously, this is just a drawing, not a photograph, of David holding Goliath's decapitated head because the battle belongs to Jehovah. So this is going to be a pretty simple one. I'm going to share the Bible. We're going to look up the name Goliath, and we're going to see a question, and I'm going to answer it. So you're wondering, like, well, how is it even a question that David killed Goliath? We're going to have a little, who killed Goliath, if we know David killed Goliath. Well, we're going to have a little bit of fun bringing the question up before I get to the answer, which isn't something I normally do, but it's not an important gospel spiritual issue or something. And so it's one we can have a little more fun with. I'm going to look up the name Goliath. And as we look up Goliath, it comes up 6 times. Once in 1 Samuel 17. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height 6 cubits and a span. Verse 23. As he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard. Chapter 21, verse 9. And the priest said, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom thou slewest in the valley of Aiah, behold, it wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If thou wilt take that, take, for no other save that there. And David said, none like that, give it to me. Or there is none like that one, give it to me. So he wanted that sword. I don't remember that story off the top of my head. I know I've read. Actually, I don't know if I've read that one. Well, let's continue. 1 Samuel 22:10. And he inquired of Jehovah for him and his victuals, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Verse 9. 2 Samuel, so the next book, chapter 21, verse 19. And there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan, the son of Jehoiarib, I did that pretty well, Jehoiarib, of Jehoiarib, okay, where Elhanan, the son of Jehoiarib, yeah, that was right. I was about to do it right, and I questioned myself. If it at least wasn't hyphenated, can I make it not hyphenated? Oh, now I changed what it's showing me. That was confusing. No, it's still, oh, the hyphen is helpful. I was actually adding the hyphen in, but because it looked like it was a break between 2 lines, I didn't realize, I didn't think I was getting it from the hyphen. Maybe that helped me subconsciously. Anyway, let's get back to work. And there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan, the son of Jehoiarib, a Bethlehemite, slew Goliath the Gittite, the staff of whose spear like a weaver's beam. So is this person David? Or is there some like weird thing going on? What's happening that he slew Goliath the Gittite? Didn't David? And there was, so this is 1 Chronicles 25. And there was war again with the Philistines, and Elhanan, the son of Yair, so there they made the name much simpler, slew Lahmi, the brother of Goliath the Gittite. This is actually clarification that's added. It doesn't actually say all of that. So now we're going to have to go to the Hebrew and see what part it actually says. But Yeah, we'll just do that now, and it'll be groundwork later. So, okay, what part of scripture is this? First Chronicles 20. First Chronicles 20. Some verses have incomplete English to Hebrew mapping. Learn more. Okay. Sorry, you gave me like this big warning text. But I'm about to get it on the screen. Things are happening. And we're going to streamline this down a little bit. There we go. And what verse number was it? Oh, and here it actually shows that the words "the brother of" were added. Yeah, and so it does not actually say that here, but I usually skip the italicized words. I didn't even notice. So we're in 1 Chronicles 20, verse 5. Got it. So back here, fortunately I have to do the settings again momentarily. In verse 5, verse numbers are on the right because we're reading right to left. And there was again war with the Philistines and slew Elhanan. Now, I'm no Hebrew expert, so I'm just literally reading the English on the top. The son Yahir, Lahmi, the brother of Goliath. Well, it says all this is here. But I'm pretty sure. Okay, we might have to check someone else's video to find out why I was not expecting that. So, oh, hey, Slam, I haven't seen you in a long time. So let's go search the topic. Who killed Goliath? And I'm just looking for the same video I've seen. Yeah, here it is. Because I don't want to watch some other video on it. You know me, I don't like very many things. So the ones that are not the same one I saw, I just assume I'm not going to like them pretty much. So I don't know if audio is being shared. So I'm just going to change the screen share. I just need a moment. Audio is not being shared. I forgot to resize that screen to fit better. Not a big deal. So that's right. I basically just stole this guy's topic for you guys. But it's a very simple topic. And so I was like, yeah, also they don't have the answer, and I do. So that's another difference.
People have been asking.
I don't know if they suggest the correct answer even. I don't remember. But I'm just going to look for the part that gets to my data.
About the Goliath issue for quite an equivalent of italics. And that version was putting language in Roman type. So that is what the King James translators did. They actually inserted this language. And although italics are most often used,
let's see.
Again, and if you
that's not the one we're looking for.
My screen. Okay.
He's in Samuel. We're looking for Chronicles.
And if anybody out there knows the 1611 King James, they will recognize that the equivalent of italics.
Okay, he's still on the same page.
It's called a copula. That's the technical linguistic terminology for it. And frequently, Hebrew elides copulas. That means they leave them out. Hebrew leaves them out, and they often need to be supplied by translators. So you will frequently see was and is in italics in the New American Standard Bible and in the King James Version, any versions that you
can. We're looking for chapter 20, not a chapter 21. So that'll help us follow the right place.
And there is no word.
Okay, here's the
Logos Bible software. Where's my Hebrew tab? I had it open.
Here's what we're looking for.
Aha, here we go. Biblical.
So this is from the channel A Fresh Perspective. You know, you guys can check out his channel. I'm not really going to bother with a link because I do think the biblical scholarship issue is very important, and he kind of he doesn't have the right perspective on it. It seems, or he thinks both perspectives are fair, and so yeah. But it is on a fresh perspective, and you can search him and check it out.
Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia, which is exactly the same text in this place that the King James translators were looking at. And here are those verses, and you can see Goliath the Gittite right here. You can see Elhanan right here, and there is no word brother. The brother of is not there.
Okay, he skipped over some words there, so let's look at which words are labeled as the brother of, because you guys can see that I was given information like this, and so I wasn't basing it on nothing. And so now let's go back to testing it for ourselves, now that we have cleared up where I got that idea from. So it's verse 5. Yep. Okay, so let's look at this word brother, which he says is not here. And let me see if it's there in his text that he has on his screen, the word I'm looking at. I don't think I see the word on his screen.
Nope. See
Elhanan. Oh, it would be within another word possibly, so I have to look extremely closely. Oh wait, that might be the word right there. I'm with the vowel just looking a little bit different. Yes, it is. So the word is there. So I need to copy and paste because it won't open on the same tab. So here we go. We're checking the word. Ach. Brethren, brother. Brethren 332 times. Brother 269 times. Another 23 times. So says it's a primitive word brother used in the widest sense of literal relationship and metaphorical affinity. So the reason you'd say another of something is they'd be figuratively using brother in these cases probably. So they're like, this object is a brother of that object, but they're objects or something, right? So let's see. And they swear one to brother, and he dreamed yet brother dream. Okay, so a dream that seems to be related to the previous dream. So you see how we would never say brother dream in that circumstance, right? So yeah, so sometimes it's exactly like I said, that the word brother is just not what we would use, and sometimes they actually could have used it, but they didn't. So that's interesting. Okay, so now we know the word brother is there. Now you see why I don't recommend the channel A Frisch Perspective, because it's literally right here on the here. Let me show you where it is on the man's screen. So you see those two letters. The one on the right kind of looks like an H and an X had a baby, and then the one on our left is just like a square with no bottom, basically. So you have that kind of weird X and that kind of arch, like a squared arch, right? So then we're going to look for that weird X and a squared arch right in the section where he said it's not. And we're going to see that it is there. And so it's actually a lot less of a question than I thought, because I didn't accuse this person of just doing an extremely negligent job. Why even address this topic if you're not going to address it right? Like, you didn't see me just coming on here and repeating what he said and not making sure it's right. Like, why would you address a topic and address it wrong? Just wow, it astounds me. So let's listen to what he says. And here's the word right there. So you guys should be able to see my icon circling around the word. You see that weird little X on the right of this word, and then the squared off arch on the left. And that's just before these two words here. So I'll click from here. I'll use my keyboard to rewind it. So let's check out what he says. Oh, he zoomed in. Or he zoomed about.
You can see Elhanan, Goliath.
Okay,
here
this will
are
work.
those
I just won't move my
verses,
mouse.
and you can see Goliath the Gittite right here. You can see Elhanan right here, and there is no word, brother. The brother.
His mouse icon is literally pointing to the word brother. No joke. It's just straight up the word brother right there. That is the word brother that his mouse icon is pointing at. So I'm going to have to email Frisch now with this timestamp, or the timestamp just before this, where we have the word brother on screen, and I'm talking about it. This is so bad, Mark Ward. I've got to see if I can reach out to you and find out how you made this mistake. And hopefully you're the kind of person that goes out of your way to go on the same channel and, you know, do a short little episode or whatever, letting them know that this was a mistake. So, yeah, because the word brother is just clearly there. He's literally pointing to it. So, now, there is still something interesting in the history here, so we can still look at that, right? So, let's do that. We're going to go back to screen sharing the Bible, which okay, looks like that's the tab I want to use. Okay, so for fun, we're going to read the story of Goliath, and then I am going to I'll just explain it first, since everyone's heard the story. No, it's such a good read. We're going to read it. Yeah. I'm going to do the live stream I want to do. We're going to have fun with this and enjoy it. So we're going to 1 Samuel 17. So now there is a clear explanation on Frisch perspective. I don't remember if they even offer the clear explanation as even one of the possibilities, but they might offer it as a possibility. I don't remember, but it's rather clear, and I'm going to explain why it's rather clear. And that would be even if the word brother did not appear in the text, which it does appear in the text. Now the Philistines gathered together their army together at Shachah, which belonged to Judah, and pitched between Shachah and Ezekah, and Ephes Demim, and Saul, or Shaul, may as well as long as I'm trying to pronounce things right, and Shaul and the men of Israel, even though for all I know that's Israel or something, and I just haven't studied it much. But, you know, and Shaul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Aiah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and a valley between them. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height 6 cubits and a span, and an helmet of brass upon his head, and he armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat 5,000 shekels of brass, and greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass upon his shoulders, and the staff of his spear like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think it mentioned the weaver's beam regarding this Goliath. So I was thinking that was what specified that the other one is a different Goliath. But apparently it straight up does say that his spear was like a staff of a weaver's beam. But let's continue. We still have a sufficient answer here, and it's still clear enough. So when we get there, it'll still be okay, but it's a little bit different than I thought. So this is where, I thought this would be shorter because I didn't think the due diligence would put so many wrinkles in what I was doing. But this is why I always do due diligence, right? And I either do it before I go live with it or while I'm going live with it. But I try not to just do topics without the due diligence being directly involved. I think lately I'm pretty good about that. Sometimes we're in the middle of a topic and I'm like, there's still more due diligence to come. Like when I thought Ellen G. White invented that blasphemous doctrine, and then I found out someone else invented it, and she was just the one who promoted it, put her stamp of approval on it, her popularity and stuff. So I've got to learn more about the ins and outs of that. But yeah, but at the same time, the reason I didn't double check was I said maybe it's some other thing and she didn't do it, and we're going to keep looking into it. And that's exactly what we did. So here, yeah, I did not expect, even though I've read this before, I didn't remember this part. And when I was trying to just check the facts, I didn't come across this either. Which I should have, because I should have searched for it, right? But maybe I figured I would save it for this live stream. I don't remember what I was thinking. So let's continue. And the staff of his spear like a weaver's beam. So I'm guessing a weaver's beam is like yay big around would be my guess. Just off the top of my head, right? And so normally we would hold a spear maybe like this big around. Someone who's holding a spear like this big around. Yeah, weaver's beam might be even bigger than that, because a man that large should have even larger hands than that. So, because back then that would have been like a large industrial-ish kind of a thing, because you would have had to produce a lot of weaving. I mean, we have large industrial things to produce our clothes now as well, So, yeah, it would have been wood and ancient style, but it probably would have been pretty big, so you could make a lot of cloth, kind of a thing. And the staff of his spear like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went in front of him. And he stood and cried and shouted unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set battle in array? Not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Shaul? Choose a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me, and to kill me, then will we be your slaves. And if I prevail against him, and kill him, then shall ye be our slaves, and serve us. And the Philistine said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man, that we may fight together. When Shaul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David, the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men, an old man in the days of Shaul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse followed Shaul to battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to the battle, Eliab the firstborn, and next unto him Abinadab, and the third Shemah, and David the youngest. And the 3 eldest followed Shaul. And remember, David was already anointed by this point, if I remember correctly. So if I don't remember correctly, then don't remember that if you know better than I do. But David went and returned from Shaul to feed the father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, so what's going on with David is he's not a warrior, so he just thinks they're going to have it handled. It's not his problem, right? But now it's been 40 days later, and no one's handled it. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brothers an ephah of this parched, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brothers, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of 1,000, and look how thy brothers fare, and take their pledge, which I think means to take their word or to get report from them, I'm guessing. Unless, I don't think take their pledge means to also enlist with them. It's possible, but and if so, that would be why David's like, I'll fight him. So I'm not sure. But I'm not going to do that deep of a word study on this right now, because this is supposed to be a lighter, shorter one. It's already longer than I expected. Now, Shaul and they, but it is more interesting, right, that I found out about just flagrantly false facts being just casually put out on the Frisch perspective. And that's a rather popular channel for us Christian YouTuber people, right? And so, yeah. So this is becoming more of a story on our end. Now, Shaul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper, and took and went. And Yesse had commanded him, or as Yesse had commanded him. And it's probably Yeshe, or Yeshe. And he came to the trench, as the host was going forth to fight, and shouted for the battle. So I guess he was cheering them on or something, basically. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brothers. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words. And David heard. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel he come up. And it shall be, the man who kills him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him. Now remember, David was there the first day this happened, and he went back to care for the sheep. So he's aware that this has been going on for 40 days, and no one has done anything about it. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that kills this Philistine, and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who this he's shocked that there has to be such a reward. What shall be done to the man that kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? And the man who does it, it's going to be God who does it. And I think that's David's point here. That's totally what his point is here. What shall be done to the man that kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that kills him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, Why camest thou down here? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride, and the haughtiness of thine heart. For thou art come down, that thou may see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? And there is not cause. And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they repeated before Shaul, and he sent for him. And David said to Shaul, Let no man's heart fail, because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Shaul said to David, Thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Shaul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep, and there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went after him, and smote him, and delivered out of his mouth. And when he rose against me, I caught by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he has defiled the armies of the living God. David said, moreover, Jehovah that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of the Philistine. And Shaul said unto David, Go, and Jehovah be with you. Wow, Shaul was not all bad. He wasn't all bad. I mean, what a response, right? Because he cited God, that's the right answer. He couldn't object to the right answer. He simply says, Go, and Jehovah be with thee. And Shaul armed David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also, he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go. And he essayed or refused to go, I guess, in context, for he had not proved. Okay, let's just see what the word essayed means real quick. I'm just looking it up on another tab. Determine the content or quality of. Examine. Okay, so it says here, and he examined to go, for he had not tested. Okay, well, that's a weird way of putting it. So maybe essayed for us isn't the right translation. But because of how he examined the stuff, he chose not to go yet because he had not tested. And that means he had no training with the armor on. He had no skills with the armor on, right? And David said unto Shaul, I cannot go with these, for I have not tested. And David put them off. And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had, even in a scrip, and his sling in his hand. And he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came on and drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield in front of him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was a youth, and ruddy, and of fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog, that thou comest to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the birds of the air, and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest to me with a sword, and with a spear, and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of Jehovah of armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will Jehovah deliver thee into my hand, and I will smite thee, and take thine head from thee. And I will give the carcasses of the host of the Philistines this day. So instead of just about the 2 of them, he goes all out. And I will give the carcasses of the entire host. He doesn't say entire, I guess, but I will give the carcasses of the army of the Philistines this day unto the birds of the air, and to the wild beasts of the earth. And all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all this assembly he's not done. And all this assembly shall know that Jehovah saves not with sword and spear, because the battle belongs to Jehovah, and he will give you into our hands. And it came to pass when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, and that David hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took from there a stone, and slang, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him. But no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. And the men of Israel and of Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines until they come to the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell by the way to Shaharaim, even unto Gath, and unto Ekron. And the children of Israel returned from chasing after the Philistines, and they spoiled their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem. But he put his armor in his tent. And when Shaul saw David go forth against the Philistine, he said unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, unto Abner, the captain of the host, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As thy soul liveth, O king, I cannot tell. Now, Shaul already knew David at this point. David had already played music for him in a one-on-one setting and stuff, so he's forgotten him. And the king said, "Inquire thou whose son this stripling." Well, he might not have forgotten him. He probably never knew who his father was. So maybe he noticed it was the same person. And as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Shaul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Shaul said to him, "Whose son, thou, young man?" And David answered, "The son of thy servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite." And it came to pass, when he had made an end of speaking unto Shaul, that the soul of Jonathan was stitched with the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. And Shaul took him that day, and would let him go no more home to his father's house. So he's unofficially adopting him, kind of a thing. Which is okay. His father has a bunch of sons, and David was out with the sheep. He wasn't spending a lot of time with his father, and now he has better prospects. So, okay, now let's go to the other Goliath. So we don't need to go into the Sword of Goliath. We read that a little bit, and that is kind of like backstory. It's kind of intriguing, right? So, but here it does not say the brother of. So I think what happened was in the Chronicle account, they decided to make sure they were very clear because it had been less specifically clear in the account in, I think this is the fourth book of Kings. I think 2nd Samuel is considered fourth, or is it 1st and 2nd Samuel are 1st and 2nd Kings, and 1st and 2nd Kings are 3rd and 4th Kings. Depends on what order they're in the Bible. I don't have that memorized. But we actually can look at that pretty easily. I just clicked Bible. A Bible book list. Here we go. Okay, so 2nd Samuel is 2nd Kings, which makes more sense. Which is why I noticed that maybe I'm mistaken here. Okay. So, but Chronicles, as far as I can tell, is written later. So this is what we read about David was in 1st Kings or 1st Samuel. So 1st Samuel, also known as 1st Kings, if you list it as 4 books of Kings. And then here in 2nd Samuel, or 2nd Kings, if you list it as 4 books of Kings. Okay, let's get some context here. So we'll go ahead and start at the beginning of the chapter, because we like reading the Bible. Then there was a famine in the days of David 3 years, year after year, and David inquired of Jehovah, and Jehovah answered, for Shaul and for bloody house, because he slew the Gibeonites. And the king called the Gibeonites and said unto them, now the Gibeonites, not of the children of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. And the children of Israel had sworn unto them. And Shaul sought to slay them in his zeal to the children of Israel and Judah. Okay, so you see the problem is that the Israel and Judah had given their word to these people, and Shaul's trying to slay them on their behalf. So you can imagine there was no telephones or anything back then, so maybe there was like a miscommunication here, or Shaul was just belittling a treaty that he should not have been belittling. So wherefore David said unto the Gibeonites, what shall I do for you? So at this point, David is king and Saul was the previous king, it looks like, in the days of David. Okay, so that would make David king, David. Wherefore, Shaul has left David with diplomatic problems. Wherefore David said unto the Gibeonites, what shall I do for you? And wherewith shall I make the atonement, that ye may bless the inheritance of Jehovah? So we all know what happens here, unless we don't, but I think most people in this audience probably do. And the Gibeonites said unto him, We will have no silver nor gold for Shaul, no, nor of his house, neither for us shalt thou kill any man in Israel. And he said, What ye shall say will I do for you. And they answered the king, The man that consumed us, and that devised against us, we should be destroyed. So we would like destroyed from remaining in any of the coasts of Israel. But 7 men of his sons, so he apparently had a lot of sons, 7 men of his sons be delivered unto us. And we will hang them up unto Jehovah in Gibeah of Shaul. Jehovah did choose, whom Jehovah did choose. Okay. So, they're saying it's not about slaying any Israelites. This is not a diplomatic problem between us and Israel. This is a diplomatic problem between us and the house of Shaul. That's what's going on here. And so they're asking for this solution to leave it in the past and be a proper solution. And the king said, that is David, I will give. But the king spared Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Shaul. Okay, so these are not, so he's not even providing direct sons. Here it's talking about grandsons. Because of Jehovah's oath between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Shaul. But the king took the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, that's better, whom she bare unto Shaul, Armani and Mephibosheth, and the 5 sons of Michal, the daughter of Shaul. Okay, so this is a son with the same name, a grandson with the same name as the other grandson, but they're clarifying that it's a different branch of the family tree, and it is not the same Mephibosheth. So and the 5 sons of Michal, the daughter of Shaul. And so these 2 from the daughter of Aiah, and these 5 from the daughter from Michal, the daughter. So 2 daughters of Shaul. A granddaughter of Shaul and a direct daughter of Shaul. So that's 2 great-grandchildren of Shaul and 5 grandchildren of Shaul. Okay, whom she brought up for Edriel, the son of Barzillah, the Meholathite. And he delivered them in. Okay, so what does it mean that she brought them up for him? I mean, it kind of sounds like David is like choosing the least like reputable, like the least celebrity or whatever of all the people he can find, almost, that could fit the criteria. So they have like certain reasons they do certain things back then, and he's honoring a lot of that. And perhaps that was the right way to go about it. I don't know. And he delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them in the hill before Jehovah. And they fell 7 together, and were put to death in the days of the harvest, in the first, in the beginning of barley harvest. And Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it for her upon the rock, from the beginning of harvest until water dropped upon them out of heaven, and suffered neither the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. Okay. So Rizpah, for Aiah's sake, was protecting the corpses, apparently. And it was told David what Ribsah, the daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Shaul, had done. And David went and took the bones of Shaul and the bones of Jonathan his son from the men of Yabesh Gilead. As if even Jonathan was dead, maybe Wait, but you said he spared Jonathan, right? Or Jonathan's son, that's right. So if even Jonathan was dead, maybe I was mistaken in how I was assessing the matter, as if he was choosing the less honored people, right? The less reputed. Reputable wasn't the right word. Reputed was the right word. And David went and took the bones of Shaul and the bones of Jonathan, his son, from the men of Yabesh Gilead, which had stolen them from the street of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hanged them, when the Philistines had slain Shaul in Gilboa. And he brought up from there, the bones of Shaul and the bones of Jonathan his son. And they gathered the bones of them that were hanged, and the bones of Shaul and Jonathan his son buried they in the country of Benjamin in Zerah, or Salah, in the tomb of Kish his father. And they performed all that the king commanded, and after that God was entreated for the land. Moreover, the Philistines had yet war again with Israel, and David went down, and his servants with him, and fought against the Philistines. And David grew faint. And Ishbibenob, oh, there's a hyphen again, and Ishbibenob, which of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose spear 300 of brass in weight, he being girded with a new, thought to have slain David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, rescued him and smote the Philistine. So the word secured means rescued, in case you don't know that. And smote the Philistine and killed him. Then the men of David swore unto him, saying, Thou shalt go no more out with us to battle, that thou quench not the light of Israel. And it came to pass after this, that there was again a battle with the Philistines at Gob. And Sibbechai, the Hushathite, slew Saph, which of the sons of the giant. And there was again a battle in Gob with the Philistines, where Elhanan, the son of Yare-Oregim, a Bethlehemite, slew Goliath the Gittite, the staff of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of stature that had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number, and he also was born to the giant. Okay, so this is very clear. Also born to the giant. So this Goliath is born to the giant. And there was another of great stature. So what's going on here is very clear. I don't know why they would do an episode acting like, oh, there's a question in the air, we don't know the answers. I'm guessing Marxist infiltration did something in the seminaries and academia where even though these are clear, easy answers, they're teaching kids in school that these are not clear, easy answers. And this is why I was saying, I think I mentioned in my previous live stream, if you heard me refer to myself as putting myself through seminary, so to speak, you're probably breathing a sigh of relief. Because this guy who was on the first perspective that we saw is just plain in error. It's a small topic. This is one of the smallest topics I have ever addressed on my channel. It might be the smallest topic I have ever addressed on my channel. As far as a whole video for one topic, this is tiny. It's just a technical little point of text. That's all it is. We're having fun with it. That's the only reason this live stream is long, is because we're having fun with it. But, yeah. So it's just very obvious. Goliath is a family name. Now, is that an excuse? Is that ad hoc? Is that surprising? Well, I don't know if anyone's listening to me right now, but if you're listening to me, have you heard of General Pershing? Do you know his first name off the top of your head? Have you heard of Colonel Custer? Do you know his first name off the top of your head? Now, some people do, but we also live in an age, the information age, right? And so, but plenty of people don't know these people's last names, or first names, I mean. And so, yeah, that's why it says Goliath. And we even see, look, this other guy, he's described, but his name's not known either, but he was born to the giant. So I didn't even know it was going to be so clearly stated. I could just tell that the obvious answer is that it's a family name because these are military accounts. And this is just standard military stuff that sometimes, it, the family, if someone goes by a famous family name, and then, we like I said, Colonel Custer, General Pershing, right? Are there any presidents whose first names aren't known very well? Most of them, their first names are kind of known pretty well the way we do our culture. So that's not really going to work. But I did give good examples with General Pershing and with Colonel Custer. And I'm going to leave it at that. I kind of talked about it more than I had to because this is like the answer. So I'm kind of trying to make it bigger than it is. But it's really a simple answer, right? It's a family name. That's normal for military stuff. And even if we didn't have so much clarity, this would not be a question, really. The answer would still be obvious enough. But we have explicit clarity. He was also born to the giant. And when he defied Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shimeiah, the brother of David, slew him. These four were born to the giant in Gath. It literally says these four. So the one with the 6 fingers, the one that Elhanan slew, Saph, they actually knew the name of one of them, was of the sons of the giant. Okay, I'm not seeing if I see the fourth one. Oh, okay. Smote the Philistine, so that's right here, and killed him. So this one that was where this man rescued David. So thought to have slain David means he was about to slay him. But they're like, he thought he was going to slay him, but we got him. So that's why he's worded that way, right? So that's the 4 of them. The one that David was rescued from, Saph, the one that was slain by Elhanan, which he actually is referred to as Goliath. So he must have been the biggest, not necessarily the biggest, but he was the most famous one of them that was still alive. So he was being called by the family name, just straight up Goliath. And then there was one more who had 6 appendages on each hand and foot, or digits, 6 digits on each hand and foot. And these 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. So actually, now the part that becomes a question is, why does it say brother here? Because it clearly does, even though that guy said it doesn't. And if he was right, it would actually be easier because we would be like, well, he was born to him. Now that word brother is sometimes another of something. And yeah. So and I think it may refer to he was one of the Goliath brothers, kind of a thing. Hebrew grammar is not something I'm good at, and it's not that I'm especially good at. I am especially good at studying grammar, foreign grammar, because of my experience with the Greek, and the same tools I have for the Greek are the same tools as for the Hebrew. So in that sense, I'm very well prepared to study the grammar, but it's just so much different from English, and I don't know how to learn the exact comparison, and I've been putting my time into the New Testament instead, into the Greek. But yeah, so, but it does seem Hebrew grammar tends to be more vague, and so with that, I think this brother being applied here, let me get a verse number. Oh, just verse 5. Okay, nice and early. Then probably could be thought of as one of the Goliath brothers, right? So I don't know if there's a definite article, so I'm going to actually look at that. I'm just doing this on another screen real quick. Lahmi, brother, common, singular. So it's a common noun, and it shows nothing about a definite article. Yeah, it should say article if there's an article. Let me click on it and make sure I'm taking a close enough look. How do I click on that? That's right. Okay. So, yeah, there's no article half to the word. Yeah, so it's not a definite article. So it's not the brother. So it's Lahmi, brother of Goliath Gittite. And so, or Lahmi, brother. In fact, I don't even think of Goliath. Let's see if it has any grammar attached to it. Nope, it has no grammar attached to it whatsoever. So that makes it easy. And Gittite has a slash involved, so it looks like it does have some grammar. So, but he's Goliath the Gittite. Here we do have our, let me make sure. I'm about to say it before I've made sure. A particle, a definite article. That means the. So it is the Gittite, but it is not the brother. We have perfect clarity to that point. So, so what I am saying that now they actually got his name then. They didn't have his name the other time. So Lahmi, the Lahmi, brother of Goliath the Gittite, which is to say he's one of the Goliath brothers of the Goliath family. One of the sons that was born to him, and there are a bunch of brothers that we always deal with. So he's one of the Goliath brothers. And how can we be sure of that? Well, we know he was born to Goliath, and we know we have an account of the slaying of 4 brothers born to Goliath, and we know that Goliath is a family name. And so we have clarity that he is one of the Goliath brothers, the at least 4 sons of Goliath, specifically one of the 4 that were slain in 2 Samuel, or as the Hebrews refer to it, 2 Kings, out of what they list as 4 books of Kings. So for them, our 1st and 2nd Kings are 3rd and 4th Kings for them. So we have gotten to all of the bottom of this. Now let me write for myself. I have 3 emails I have. Well, I don't have to do the email to Richard, and that's a different Richard and the one who's usually here. I think they're both named Richard. I don't think I'm mistaking something there. But anyway, I don't have to email him because I had a chance to tell him another time. But now I got to email Frisch and that Mark guy, whatever his name is exactly. I'll just put Mark for now. I can deal with it later. Yeah, so I need to email them because that's what we got to do for our brothers. You know, I'm the one who discovered this. Probably no one else is going to point out the blatant mistake to them and all of that. And that's what church has got to do, I would say anyway. So I'm going to do it. And with that, I've enjoyed this one. I thought it would be more like a half hour because I didn't realize I was getting such bad information. Oh, did you see that? I looked at the clock, which is over here from me. And then I fake looked at the clock and it worked. I didn't get a good look at it, but I think it looked like oh, you guys can't even see the clock up there. So it doesn't, none of the, anyway, I'm just being a goof now. But yeah, I didn't expect it to take this long, but the entire way he addressed it was completely inaccurate. The actual, the fact that brother was there became the part that if anyone's going to think any of it sounds like I have an excuse, it's that brother Goliath the Gittite would mean one of the Goliath brothers as opposed to Goliath's brother because he's Goliath's son. We know that from the book of 2 Samuel. And so that would be the part that sounds the most like an excuse, but he claims that word brother is not even there, but it is there. It's just plainly there, and it's just plainly the word brother. It was on his screen as he was talking about it, and he was ignoring it. And I don't know Hebrew. I didn't know what the word brother was going to be. I just did some due diligence. And this guy is putting himself up as an expert. I bet he's graduated seminary. I bet Jamie wouldn't call him disqualified. You see what I mean? This is what we're dealing with out there when people have human, earthly, worldly standards about things instead of God's standards about things. And what's the standard? That we owe due diligence because it matters a lot. So let's do the work. I'm not talking about a standard of qualification or something. Like, qualifications are nothing. That's neither here nor there. If you're really doing it and it's honestly happening, you're doing it and it's honestly happening. Those are the facts. And your credentials that justify you putting out false information mean nothing. Just like my lack of credentials that do not justify me doing my best to show a process of due diligence and prepare myself to be a focused teacher, right? Yeah, my lack of credentials don't give me any justification in that. None of that matters. And this is an obvious example, you know? I mean, yeah, that first perspective video, like, everyone would just look at that and think, yeah, this looks like the legit stuff and blah, blah, blah. And they might look at me and be like, this is just some guy in his bedroom. And like, I'm okay with what he's doing. He doesn't got it together, you know? And like, who cares how people judge with their eyes, you know? We have God to have our assurance in. We have God to trust. We have faith to walk by, not by sight. Amen. And with that, let me mention, as I always love to mention, that the Jews require a sign and the Greeks seek after wisdom. But what we do is we proclaim Christ crucified. That is where the victory was achieved. It was already done, achieved, victorious, enemies defeated before the resurrection, before the ascension. He defeated them and he went to his throne. They were already defeated. The Jews require a sign, the Greeks seek after wisdom. We proclaim Christ crucified. Unto the Jews a stumbling block, unto the Greeks foolishness, but unto us who are saved, the power of God and the wisdom of God, Christ Jesus, because the weakness of God is stronger than men. You see, my brothers, how you see your calling, the fellows amongst whom are also called with you, that there's not many strong or mighty men according to this world or after the flesh, not many wise men by the standards of eyes looking on us from outside. But God has used the base, the lowly, the despised things of the world that the world thinks low, despised, to confound the wise, so that salvation is not founded in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. 1 Corinthians chapters 1 through 3. And now, of course, that summarizes in my 3 favorite words to leave everyone with, because I mean it so much. This was the focus that when I didn't know better, I didn't know any detail except the one detail, Christ and him crucified. When I didn't know any better, I knew, and I advise you now, whether you're far advanced beyond me in your maturity or in your studies or in both, or whether you're not yet as far along as I am in either your maturities and your studies. Either way, whoever you are, even if you don't believe the gospel yet, then this is my begging you to believe the gospel. If you believe the gospel, then walk in that. Just trust Messiah.